catalogs have been about analytic data assets. In a world of agents, so catalogs have to evolve to govern both the agents, the data they use as context, and the provenance of their decision-making. That's the vision Informatica is building toward.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Road to Service as Software. I'm Rob Strechay, and today's episode is one you won't want to miss. There's a big shift to get beyond analytics data and why gold data is only a starting point. Agents need to understand the potential silos of data in different parts of the organization, and the catalog needs to help agents find not only other agents, but the right agents to complete tasks across these silos. And the catalog also has to manage the agent lifecycle by tracking lineage, not just data, but observability of the decisions and actions of multiple agents in a workflow. All this depends on a catalog of catalogs that represents the metadata system of record. That's why we're so excited to have on today Pratik Parekh, who's the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Integration and AI at Informatica, joining us on this episode. Glad to have you on with George and I. I think this is something that we all geek out about. And I think this is, how things are changing with data. Data, everybody says data is is gold. And if you look at the bronze, silver and gold medallion types of data, yeah, of course, gold data makes a lot of sense when you get up to that level. But I want to get your view on this and welcome you on board.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So maybe let's start with this keying off what Nadella, what he said that became a meme, which was, it's just going to be agents and raw databases. And here at theCUBE, we've been exploring the theme that there's really a four-dimensional map in between. The data is the infrastructure, the four-dimensional map of how your enterprise works, unifies and harmonizes all these islands of data and applications, and it's based on metadata. And then the agents are on top. And Informatica really, as much as anyone outside, perhaps Palantir, has built that a platform for enabling companies to build that 4D map. Maybe you can elaborate on its role in an age of AI where data programs AI.
George, a great question and a great place to start with Satya's quote. I truly believe that data is the new gold, or data is the only currency that organizations have, and is the foundation to all the business processes and all the decision making that organizations have to do going as in the new world of AI. Let's take a look at what that looks like. AI is an application tier. AI is an analytics tier, and both of, irrespective of what use cases you think about, whether it's an analytics use case or a business process automation use case or a new application development, AI is going to be involved in all of that. And what is AI asked to? What do we mean by AI? Artificial intelligence. It requires intelligence. It requires it is being asked to make good decisions irrespective of this use case that we talk about. And it can only make those decisions if it is grounded on good data. And hence, the notion that you will have a data tier and you will have everything fused together on the top that is interacting with data is absolutely critical. And then you hit an excellent point in terms of the second layer on top of the data. How do you know what data you have? What is the relationship with all of this data? Is it good data? Where is it coming from? Who is using it? How it is using it? And that's the metadata intelligence layer. At Informatica, we call it metadata system of record. And that's really the core of how you're going to interact with data, because no human can potentially look at terabytes of data that is going to be there. So at some point, that the description of that data is going to be more vital to the organization than the data itself or the applications that they're developing, because irrespective of it can come, the interactions will happen across the board from every different side, and it is grounded. It can only do its job if it's grounded on good data.
Yeah, it would
So
seem.
maybe
Oh wait, I got a good
go ahead.
question for that
Yeah,
one.
go ahead.
Because when you talk about it that way, I mean, it would seem that that's really the next generation of what was master data management, and where we're going is because, and this is kind of one of the things that's, data is so fragmented and siloed now across organizations, across different PaaS layers, different SaaS layers, on premise, in the cloud, all over. Do you see that as really like what master data management has become? Is really, it's that layer above, it's the metadata, that service and business intent of that data versus the data itself now?
Yeah, the authoritative data is the key there. That when you say master data, initially and for so long it used to be by domains. But when multi-domains and when every other application is going to look for the truthful data, the data that can be trusted, right? The whole data tier has to be trusted. Has that foundation has to be right for all of these interactions to work. So from that perspective, yes, the data tier, all of that data that you are curating and you are asking your AI to make decisions on better be of high quality and trusted data, because that's what AI is going to base its reasoning logic on and is going to drive decisions around. So a great analogy with master data management and what master data did for particular domain, for truthful data, for a single source of data. Now that data needs to be available to the organizations across the board for all the use cases that we talked about earlier. And going back to your analogy of master data with cataloging, I definitely agree with from that perspective. But it's now catalog does not provide an actual golden copy of the data, but it knows where the golden copy is. So from that perspective, catalog is going to be the single view of everything the organization has, and it's a vision, it's a direction that most organizations are. They are building that out. Still long way for larger organizations to get there, but what will be really valuable is how far and how close they get to that single data set with a holistic enterprise view of that data.
So maybe on that topic, Pratik, help us understand, like, let's ground this in like a customer example. Banks have always been very advanced. Maybe there's a customer like a bank who's done a good job now of integrating those data and application silos with metadata. Tell us what that looks like and what some of their use cases are now once they can, have that level of integration.
Yeah, it started in many of our customers. You'll hear the word uniformly across. They call it modernization. They call it re-architecture. But it is clearly a single view. How do we enable rest of the organizations to make good decisions? How quickly we can make those decisions, how can we provide the agility and differentiator and in the individual markets that all of these customers are, and how what will differentiate them. And is the agility and the speed is what is driving a lot of this new age solutions that they are putting together. And AI in some ways came in as a disruptor, because they were already in this journey of helping organizations make more informed decisions, and it started with analytics. When it got into predictive models and predictions in the businesses, they started working with data science, logic, and so on. And now all of a sudden, AI is coming in last 12 months at an accelerated space, and they all are figuring out as to if this can AI provide us that agility and decision making that was needed? Can we write new applications? Can we bring new products and services to the market? And all of that is going to again be is driven by that foundation of data. So in some ways, it is now that data. We call it data lakes or lake houses, and now I call it a data fabric in some ways, that what you are really writing is a fabric that almost all use cases is going to be grounded on. And how do you then fast track that to get to that vision so that all of these applications can do their job, right? And that is really where organizations are putting a lot of energy behind. Their use cases are evolving from historical analytics to predictive models, now from predictive models to AI applications, from AI applications to now doing truly process automation, which can be that is more dynamic in nature and more reactive to the environment that is working with. So a lot of things that organizations are figuring out right now. But one thing is clear, and that's what Informatica has been talking about, that all of this can only be possible if you have the right data foundation.
So maybe following up on that, and Rob, then you jump in after me, that this notion of this process integration, like we used to think of order to cash or procure to pay within the context of a single app. But now we've got these sprawling application estates and data estates that, with hundreds or thousands of silos in big companies. What are customers now, with the technology that you're currently shipping, able to build cross-application processes? And then can agents use that same data and process intelligence to work across these silos as well?
True. Very, very good question. And yes, our answer is fragmentation was already out when we talked about SaaS applications and homegrown applications. There were hundreds for a particular domain. And when you think a larger organization across the enterprises, there would be, it will hit the numbers like what you're talking about, thousands of applications that are already there in an organization, interacting with each other with APIs and messages and so on and so forth. But now we are thinking about, as we go from this stage to the next gen, it is going to be how can these processes be adaptive in nature, can react to the changing business requirements and market requirements, and that is where I personally believe that AI is going to be heavily used in the context of those process automation. I'm still using the old word as process automation. Maybe it's an agentic processes that are going to be created. And now, instead of hundreds of those applications that we talked about that were interacting with each other to stitch complex processes, world is going to go into agents to agents communication to now do the same thing. And each agent is atomic in nature, doing a discrete work, able to look at the environment around it and make the right decisions, but now interacting with each other to drive the solution. A classic example, a demo that we gave at Informatica World was supply chain management, one of the most difficult processes and something which is core to any enterprises. But if what we went through in last a month or so from a geopolitical situation point of view, when such impact is comes in for the organization, how do they react and adapt to it, right? And the agents are able to now drive that solution. Hey, I can't find a supply. I cannot source it from one vendor because there is a situation there, whether it's geographical situation, environmental, or geopolitical, and we need to source that part because it's critical for my business. Now the agents are able to dynamically identify the next best provider of that particular solution, and the process continues, right? That would have taken weeks or months for any organizations to retweak their applications when it was static to static communication. Now agents are promising that to be much more dynamic in nature, adapting to the situations that is posing. And all of this, what is an agent? At the end of the day, when we talk about an agent, it is the ability for agent to process the information and make right decision, and you're providing some level of agency or delegation to that particular software code to make decisions on your behalf. So you have to provide the right boundaries around it, and that decision needs to be grounded on the enterprise understanding, and that is now lying in their data set. So eventually, the agents will be able to make decisions only if it is grounded on the right data. And hence, the importance of data has again expanded from, not that it was less important before, but in the world of AI, that is going to be the most important infrastructure element for any organization.
Yeah, I think just building off of that, because I think in kind of swinging it back around a little bit, when you look at how all of this is happening and what is happening across these, because I always, when I'm talking to customers, and in fact, and I mean by customers, end users, I was at a data engineering meetup for DBT a couple weeks back, and when I was having discussions with them, and when they're looking at it, and again, modeling is modeling, and I look at this, and they're trying to understand, revenue means this over here, and I need it to mean the same thing over there, and how I bring this all together. The whole concept, I think we came out of Snowbricks week last year, the Snowflake and Databricks back-to-back weeks, with the battle of the catalogs. Everybody's open sourcing, everybody's doing this, and everybody's doing that, and then Microsoft got on board with theirs, and there's always then Amazon with Glue and some other things. How do you see the landscape of the catalogs and the data and the modeling playing out, and where do you see Informatica like really playing a role in? Because I look at you guys as you're not a walled garden company. You're across all of these different places. You're partnered with all of them, and you have customers using all of them. So you got a really unique perspective in that way about enriching metadata, bringing it back into catalogs, helping people, bringing cross catalog and things of that nature.
And it's a great question. This has been true for many years, that organizations are going to be multi-cloud hybrid with system of records, applications, with critical applications that they would procure. And it's going to be a diverse infrastructure in any IT shop. Right now, how do you get a single view and an integrated view of all of this data? Sometimes it's sitting behind the firewall, sometimes it is in a locked system, and you have to unlock all of this to understand how the data is being consumed, where it is flowing, what is the relationship of all of this data. Like you gave an example of revenue. How does revenue and ARR and other definitions are tied to each other, or if not, and if so, how? How are you going to get that common vocabulary in the organization? How are you going to see the lineages between all of these data sets? And that always, we strongly, right from day one, we always believed that a catalog solution has to be that multi-cloud hybrid enterprise-wide catalog, and that's what Informatica is providing. We believe that for every center where every application will have its own catalog, that's where you have to still provide an application view of data. You have to provide a domain view of data. You have to if you are in a particular cloud, you want to say, okay, where my data sits within that particular cloud environment. So we totally agree that there will be those catalogs, Unity catalogs, and Snowflake has introduced their catalog, and Microsoft has Purview, and AWS has Glue. Catalogs are going to be there, and Informatica's value is always to be that catalog of catalogs. We integrate and we ingest this metadata from all of these other catalogs, but we are also able to get metadata from all the other 300 plus systems that you have that these systems are not going to talk to. And we provide that data view as well to give you a single pane of glass of all your data in an enterprise. And that has been a vision of Informatica all through. And we believe that today we continue to provide that value to our customers while working and integrating with all of this point catalog solutions as well.
So let me pick up on something you said, Pratik. This is just this catalog of catalogs. The conceptual model most people have of catalogs is that something that an end user would consume, or a data scientist or data engineer, but increasingly it's agents or other applications have to consume this, and not just consume, but they have to enrich it. They have to write back to that. So it's like in an era of open data, like iceberg tables or delta tables, this metadata and I want to shy away from catalog of catalog because it implies it's just a consumption thing.
Mm-hmm.
Help us understand how this becomes the new source of truth, and it's the new platform on which agents and applications themselves depend, and not just one way. They don't just consume, but they enrich it, and then how you would write back to these other catalogs if necessary.
Yeah, that two-way interaction and two-way read-write logic is definitely core to it. In instances where we have to write back into a particular catalog or provide our metadata, open that up via an API for other metadatas to other catalogs to consume it. That's part of that, and we have already implemented that technology where people can over APIs can read and write from our metadata catalog. That is true, but I think what you asked is there is a even more important point that you are trying to get to is that this metadata layer, and we call it metadata system of intelligence. We deliberately call that because that metadata is the cornerstone of the intelligence layer that we are talking about, whether it is going to be invoked by uh, LLMs, or whether it is going to be invoked by a reasoning tool out there, or in future any other AI logic that is going to evolve and come up. It needs to figure out where the right source information is, how all of this data sets, the large volume of data that customers have. We are talking terabytes of data in certain verticals and certain customer base, or exabytes of data in certain regulatory industries and so on that they have to process and keep, and for various reasons. Which data is available, which data is not available, cannot be touched. What is the relationship of all of this? The intelligence layer that we are talking about has to be grounded on this metadata system of intelligence, which is what we have been focused on for many years. We believe we have a great solution today to support the world of agentic AI, but the work is not complete. We have to push us and ourselves towards that vision of and towards the direction of giving all the right information for the upstack services and agents to bank on.
So would it be?
Sorry,
go ahead.
Rob. No, go continue.
Okay. So this, what you've, I mean, you didn't back into it, but our understanding of you has sort of backed into this concept that you're now the application server tier. In a world where, in the past we had the data tier, the app server, and the apps. And now when we want to get away from silos, the data is the basic infrastructure, but this new metadata system of record, that's the new app server tier. So how do we get to the point where all the application logic and the ML models, all the things that make up the application silos, somehow that's got to get reflected in the metadata in a harmonized way, so that agents and other applications can now navigate that without the silos? Help us understand what that's a process. What does that process look like, that journey?
It's funny that you draw that analogy. My background has been in the application server. Before I got into Informatica, I was on the application platform tier, and at one point owned the Java 2 enterprise framework at Sun Microsystems. So you are bringing those memories back, and absolutely, while I won't call the data tier as an app server, but what I would definitely call is what you're trying to get to is that app server was one of the ways that all the applications were built in the era back, and it did provide all the capabilities for that applications to interact with data tier at the back end, and to provide the services and scale for the services. And if we draw that analogy, yes, the data tier is now the foundation, and agents and the applications or services, whatever we call it, are going to sit on this foundational data fabric, which then is going to serve new applications and new business processes. So from that perspective, the data tier becomes an enabler of a new class of applications and new class of services that will be created. So the analogy is good, actually, that data becomes that foundational backbone for new applications and services. Now, when I say data, I'm not expanding. I think you touched upon it, which I should. That raw data, even the prepared data, is going to be humanly impossible for anybody to figure out. So we talked about exabytes of data. That is going to be the goal that we were talking about earlier. But how do you realize the goal is going to be in the metadata tier, how it is defined, what the data models are, what that data really comprises of, the definitions of it, the glossary of it, as to this is a revenue line item is different from a services line item. Where are those definitions described? And that is where the metadata system of intelligence come in, because it's supposed to give you not just access to the data, but it's supposed to define what the data set looks like for those applications to now make inform for those applications to work, rather. It's the agents will not work if that definition is not available to that. So that is where we are. I believe that layer is really the critical layer of where the rubber meets the road of applications tier, which agents, I put it in the application tier, services tier, and the data tier, and the means to that data is going to be that metadata definition layer.
So I got a question about that, because I think it kind of ties back into agents and data preparation and really where we go and how API'd this becomes from a data prep to data engineering. And I kind of look at it as building data products on top of that. When you look at this and you look at how people within different data silos are saying, hey, we have our agentic capabilities. And it's been announced by every data platform vendors out there talking about it, about, hey, you can come in and use our agent to augment, and most of them are smart enough to say, human in the loop, because you still need to understand the business value of the data to a certain extent when you're modeling it. But they're coming in and trying to take some of that toil out. But what happens is you end up modeling it on this platform like this and on another platform like this. Maybe the capabilities aren't all the same. Do you see that as kind of being, in fact, maybe potentially slowing down the amount of agents that get built across platform, because there's so many different sets of tooling that's going together against different metadata, and then somebody has to come in above it and say, well, you call this, and you talked about agent to agent and all of that, or hey, call this tool, which then goes underneath then through MCP and uses something. How do you see all of this coming together? Because there's a lot of building going on. Back to your thing, I mean, I remember, using even just different, JDEs and stuff like that, you would run into problems with the compatibility and things of that nature.
Yeah, we started this conversation with fragmentation of applications, and that itself was really hard to manage by the organizations. And now we are getting into this world where you won't have one, but each domain will have thousands of agents working with, and if it is going to work with its own set of data, then I think it's going to create a complete data chaos or agentic chaos in some worlds. And this is one reason why, we just came out of Informatica World before Snowflake and Databricks. We had our conference and we announced what we call as AI agent engineering. And the concept of that was to provide the full agent lifecycle management, right? Which is now grounded on this common data tier. And that is where we strongly fundamentally believe that the data foundation is going to be critical. Agents can sit with wherever it is, but those agents needs to be grounded on the good data. And then you need to provide a holistic view of the, just like we are providing a data lifecycle view, we needed to provide an agent lifecycle view as to how one agent in a particular application is interacting with other agent in the other application. How do you know whether that interaction is correct? How do you know whether they are working on the right set of data? So that lineage, that relationship between now agents is going to be equally important. How do you know out of 10 different agents that I can invoke via MCP or agent to agent protocol, how can I, which agents to pick? What will be, and this is exactly the problem that we dealt with in the on the data sets itself. Which data is the right data for me to base my forecasting on? Right.
Right.
And the same thing is going to come in now in this world, and hence we feel that we cannot stop, and I don't by any means intend to say that applications will not have agents. They all will have agents working in the context of that particular application or that domain or that data set. But then how are that inter-agent communication going to work? And that is going to be grounded on something that understands end to end that lineage of that data, that holistic view of that data, as well as now leveling up into how those agents itself are communicating with each other and what data sets they are working with, right? And Informatica is in the early journey to provide that type of value to our customers.
Do you look
Let
at,
me,
so just to close that one out, because I find I felt like the last few conferences I was at, everybody was Oprah and saying, you get an MCP server, you get an MCP server, you get an MCP server. And it drove me absolutely nuts because it's like proliferation of MCP servers everywhere. And you hit on an interesting thing. I look at the MCP server as really an API endpoint, an interface back to some tool of, it could be an analytics database, it could be an AI inference, it could be all kinds of different things behind there, and then returning some sort of value, and it's just a protocol to pass back and forth. Do you see that building that API set, that interface set is like kind of best done at that on that metadata layer? I'm trying to figure out how do we get out of this MCP thing.
MCP is a protocol.
Yeah.
We had a TCP/IP protocol. We have it. It's a protocol. It's a protocol of interaction. It's allowing you to discover something like the API definitions used to be, whether it's a Swagger or whatever technology was. It's just defining that this is what I am supposed to do. This is what my use case. You can leverage me for this. But then that particular agent is still going to run against some set of data sets and orchestrating static. If I take one agent and integrate with the other agent as a static interaction, is no different than I'm invoking one service to the other service over APIs.
Right.
At that point, it is exactly the same. But if I now have to say that I am truly dynamic, and I need to figure out which agent to invoke when certain situations. So one agent is doing inter-agent communication, and that is the level of smartness that people will need. Like going back to my supply chain automation example, those are the type of things that I have 10 other agents to interact with. Which one I will pick? And how should I pick that? And that is going to fundamentally go back to certain metadata definitions and the system of record that we were talking about, a metadata intelligence layer, to say, okay, this is the agent that I need because that's exactly doing what I'm supposed to, what I need here, and is going to invoke that. So that is where I think the world of data is converging with the world of agents, and we believe, and hence we call that as the overall agent lifecycle management that needs to happen, grounded on good data and good metadata layer.
So maybe following up on that, because
Hope it
Rob,
makes
you were
sense.
getting it.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I loved it. I think again, and I'll let George jump in here, because I think again, to me, there's so much confusion around that, and it's kind of breaking that apart so people understand, because I think everybody thinks it's going to be just one data platform to rule them all, or at least some some vendors are saying that, and I don't think that's the case in any of this stuff. It's never been. I think everything that's old is new again, and we're building these data silos, and which we used to build, islands of automation. Now we have islands of data that have to come together in some way, shape, or form. And again, that was a good way of explaining the MCP sprawl that I'm definitely seeing.
So picking up on that, because Rob, you raised a really good point about everyone's exposing MCP, and Pratik, you explained, it's just a protocol like TCP, and Microsoft actually is calling MCP the HTTP, of the agentic web. But if it's just this raw protocol, and every application vendor now is exposing their own agents, but the value of agents is going to, as you really distilled it, it's adaptive. And so we have to get beyond the silos. Help elaborate on this part where if you're exposing the APIs in applications through MCP, and then there are agents for each application silo, how does your metadata system of record make it possible for agents within those islands to find other agents, or for new agents to talk to all these islands? It's because each island essentially in the vernacular of LLMs has its own semantics. Like, how do you bridge that so that there's an adaptive layer that crosses these islands? Help us understand that.
Yeah, if you look at an individual agent in itself, it's supposed to be atomic, right? Let's say I build a travel agent that is going to help me find a good itinerary if I have to go. Let's say I'm going to Brazil and I say I want a 10-day itinerary, and it is the agent is taking over and has all the data in the large language model, public data, with all the blogs people have written about their visits in LLM. That's what the LML is doing very well, and is going to now come back with an itinerary, which is fine. I consider that as an atomic agent. But if my prompt now is expanded saying that I'm traveling with my kids who are teenagers, and that itinerary needs to be adjusted for kids-friendly travel, and I'm going on a certain budget, and I don't like to go to beaches, even though Brazil is a great place for beaches. Let's say if, I have that prompt. Now it needs to scout through that, okay, the word budget came in and the word teens came in. How is now that going to interact with? Because if as soon as I have the budget, I need to now start talking to all the travel agencies to say, okay, what is the traveling budget? And maybe I've also defined that my budget needs to be from this amount to that amount. So now it's going and has to work with the travel portals, airline portals, and so on. And now it is interacting with that agent. Now that is the dynamic nature of what I consider as an end-to-end process integration or process automation that needs to be done, where now one agent is communicating to 3 other agents to do that. And it might have to go to Expedia, and it might have to go to individual airlines portal to find out what the rates are, and then come up with a plan. And that is not going to be easy. Today, I have not seen, even though I have looked at across the board, I will get a good itinerary saying that, yeah, you can go in this thing, but will it book for me? Will it actually give me an itinerary that is budget friendly in that particular time horizon, factoring the weather that we are looking into? And that is where the challenge is going to come in. And this agents needs to now go on has to be much more dynamic, figuring out which other agents to invoke to complete that inquiry that I just made. Now, you can only do that if all of this relationship was identified and was documented somewhere, that when a budget means this, and if that is there, here are the 10 other agents that you can invoke, because you will have to go through all of them to invoke that. And that is where I think the world is moving towards, where instead of like, I just think that where we are on the AI is the tip of the spear. Is ability to do answers is great, but if I have to, can I rely on it as a travel agent would be to bring me a whole itinerary with three options saying that plan A, plan B, plan C, which one you want. And that example is a much more involved one where it has to interact with 10 different agents, and all needs to be done dynamically, sitting grounded on right data with the right elements, and understanding the narrative and the terminology that is being used in this particular example, the LLM prompt.
Okay, so this is a great example. This makes it concrete, which is you've got an agent that's got to talk to other agents or applications, and it needs a map to make sure that it's speaking the same language across these different essentially to translate. And that's what you're building. That's that catalog of catalog. But again, it's not read only, and it's not just for humans, it's for agents. The agents consult this, the agents enrich this. And you really gave the best word that I've heard, which is adaptive. Like, but we need it next to this Newtonian deterministic layer. And that's what you're providing. But the adaptive layer can't work unless you've got that Newtonian layer. And what you helped crystallize really is that you're mapping the localized maps. That's okay. That fits it all together for me. Rob, I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to me, one of the things that I also think about is really how organizations are going to deal with the whole GRC is one thing, governance, reliability, or governance, oh my God, regulation and compliance. But the big piece of that for me is observability. And I think data observability has gotten, it's been very interesting. I was talking to, at one of the Snowbricks conferences, I was talking to the head of data and platform engineering for a very large automaker. And we were having a conversation about how they deal with the observability inside of their agentic applications down to the data. And what they were saying is that there was no real clean way to understand what was going on and map that back up to what they were using as hey, I know this agent's running good. But because once I get below it into the data layer, I have no visibility into this data silo over here. How do you see that transforming? Because to me, like you said, if you had 10 agents all doing different pieces of it or tasks that are part of a bigger thing to solve.
Bigger things to solve that is dynamic,
yeah.
right? So how do you get to, and that is where the technology, I think, has to evolve and mature. Is a challenge. Because I would like to know how and observability now is not just what data movements happen between this interaction, but you want to observe how decisions were made. How did that AI agent make the decision, on what basis? So the whole world of this AI observability or data observability and the tying it back to AI governance is a big topic of focus, not just by vendors, but of course customers. No customer will deploy mission critical use cases if they don't know how the AI made the decision and what data it used to make the decision, and what the relationship was to orchestrate that type of complex flow that we talked about. So I would say that is an area of deep research and deep work that we ourselves are working on. There is organizations have to, from vendors also has to evolve from providing a data observability when those were static integrations to see how that happened, to now evolving to providing that level of visibility on the agentic side as well. So good question. I don't have all the answers on that, unfortunately, because there's a lot to be figured out at this point. Yeah.
And we're in early innings with all of this stuff anyways. But hey, Pratik, really appreciate you coming on board today. This has been unbelievable. I mean, we've gone all over the place today. And I think, again, this will hopefully help some of those folks watching gain a better understanding of what's going on. So thank you for coming on board.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And we
great
look forward
questions,
to
great
this
conversation.
follow-up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we should definitely follow up.
Yeah, we'll follow up. You know, we know you're a busy man and busy times for you guys over there. So, you know,
It is.
having
Thank
fun,
you.
man.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank
Bye-bye.
you for watching this episode of The Road to Service as Software. Subscribe and follow us here on theCUBE, the leader in analysis and news. Thanks to the guys behind there, Alex and Ken, for helping us out with this episode. And stay tuned. We got a lot more, and George has got such a roadmap for deep diving into these types of topics, and it's awesome. So see you soon.